I found her cheating at Cape Verie Resort, exposed the cheating affair on video, served divorce papers, kept the house, and finally reclaimed my life. That monitor was the first thing Rose ever said to me. I was standing in the middle of a Best Buy, staring at the specs of a display I thought was perfect for my new PC build, when this complete stranger walked up to me, arms crossed, and called me out. She had this confident, borderline smug look, like she already knew she was right. I remember laughing and saying something like, "And why not? Are you the monitor police?" That was all it took. What started as a weird random interruption turned into a 2-hour conversation about gaming setups, hardware specs, and how she was building her own gaming rig for the first time. Rose wasn't just smart, she was sharp. She knew her stuff, and by the end of it, I had ditched the monitor I was holding and picked the one she recommended, but that was not where it ended. As we walked out of the store, she asked, "Do you want to grab coffee? I owe you an explanation for that whole monitor police thing." I figured why not, I didn't have plans, and she was interesting, way more interesting than most people I'd met lately. Over coffee, she told me about her job as a software developer and how she got into gaming as a stress reliever during college. I told her about my IT gig and how I had been tinkering with computers since high school. We clicked so effortlessly, I felt like I had known her forever, even though we had just met. That coffee turned into texts, and those texts turned into dates. Before I knew it, we were spending almost all our free time together. Rose wasn't just fun, she was full of energy. She had this way of turning even the most mundane things into something exciting. A quick trip to the grocery store could somehow turn into an adventure with her. A few months into dating, we decided to go to a gaming convention in Seattle. It was her idea. She said it was the perfect test to see if I could handle her competitive side. Turns out she wasn't lying. She absolutely destroyed me in a few tournaments we joined, but she also cheered me on like I was a pro. That trip became a defining moment for us. It was where I realized I didn't just like Rose, I wanted her to be part of my life for good. We moved in together after a year of dating. She found this cozy little house close to both our jobs. It wasn't much, just 2 bedrooms, a tiny backyard, and a cat named Robin we adopted together. But it was ours, and it felt like the start of something real. Our relationship moved fast, but it never felt rushed. When I proposed to her, it was during another trip to Seattle, right in the middle of a gaming expo. I still remember the way her face lit up when I pulled out the ring. She hugged me so tight I thought she might actually crack one of my ribs. We decided to keep the wedding small, just family and a few close friends. It was perfect. For the next few years, life felt like it was falling into place. We got into this rhythm of balancing work, gaming, and spending time with friends. Rose's 2 best friends, Sophia and Elisa, were always around. The 3 of them were like a package deal. I didn't mind, they were nice enough, and it made Rose happy. Looking back at those early days, everything seemed so simple, so natural. Meeting Rose felt like winning some kind of relationship lottery. At least that was what I thought at the time. It was a Wednesday, and I remember it because I got home from work earlier than usual. The office was dealing with some server migration delays, so they let us cut out early. I walked into the house calling out for Rose, but the place was quiet. I figured she was either out or in her home office, so I made my way there to say hi. The door was slightly open, and I saw her sitting at her desk, headset on, talking to someone. Nothing unusual, except her whole vibe changed the moment she noticed me. She froze for half a second, just enough for me to catch it, then smiled like everything was fine. "Oh hey, I didn't hear you come in," she said. Her tone was too casual, forced even, like she was trying to act normal but failing. I asked her who she was talking to, and she said it was Sophia and Elisa, her best friends. That part wasn't weird. They were always chatting, but something about the way she quickly ended the call after I walked in felt off. I made a joke, something like planning world domination with the girls. Instead of laughing, she gave me this vague answer about making weekend plans and left it at that. Rose had always been an open book, especially about her conversations with Sophia and Elisa. This time, though, she was different, guarded. As I walked away, I paused by the door. It wasn't intentional, really, but I heard her whispering. Normally, Rose wasn't one to keep her voice down. Her calls with her friends were loud and full of laughter. But now she was whispering about something, and I caught snippets, words like trip and him. Him stuck with me. Who was him? I thought maybe I had misheard, but it didn't sit right. I stood there for another moment before deciding to let it go, telling myself I was being paranoid. A few days later, Rose mentioned a girl's trip to Cape Verde. She said it casually over dinner, like it was no big deal. They always did a trip once a year, so it didn't raise any alarms at first. But when I suggested joining them, it was just an offhand comment. She hesitated. She gave some excuse about how it was their tradition to keep it just the three of them. I let it slide, but something didn't feel right. The more I thought about it, the more little things started adding up. How she was suddenly more affectionate than usual, hugging me, kissing me, asking about my day in this overly sweet way. It was nice, sure, but it felt rehearsed. Then there was her phone. We had always been pretty open about our devices, shared passwords, nothing to hide, but now she was keeping her phone closer than usual. If I walked into a room while she was texting, she'd lock the screen. Once, when she went to shower, she left it on the nightstand. I was tempted to look but decided against it. I didn't want to be that guy, the one who snoops through his wife's phone. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. It wasn't just the trip or the phone, it was her behavior. Rose had always been confident, comfortable in her own skin, but lately she seemed nervous, like she was carrying a weight I couldn't see. One night I came home late after a work event. She was already in bed, but her laptop was still open on the coffee table. I glanced at the screen and saw a tab open for travel bookings. The browser history showed searches for luxury resorts and couples packages. That was the moment my doubts turned into something heavier. I wanted to ask her right then and there, but I didn't. Instead, I told myself I needed to be sure. Maybe it was nothing, I thought. Maybe I was just reading too much into things. But deep down, I knew something wasn't right, and the more I paid attention, the clearer it became that Rose wasn't telling me everything. It was late one evening when Rose stepped into the shower after dinner. She was humming some tune, completely at ease, while I sat on the edge of our bed staring at her phone on the nightstand. It was like it was daring me. I'd been trying to brush off my suspicions for weeks, telling myself I was imagining things, but her behavior had been too strange to ignore. I picked it up. My hands were shaking, but I told myself I would just look for something simple, maybe a message confirming the trip plans with Sophia and Elisa. I tapped in the password, one we had both shared for years, and opened her messaging app. At first everything seemed normal, group chats, work updates, the usual stuff. But then I saw the group chat with Sophia and Elisa. Scrolling through, I noticed something odd. Instead of the memes and usual banter, there were excited messages about their big getaway to Cape Verie, except they weren't talking about the three of them. They were talking about someone else, him. I froze when I saw the name Evan. The first messages didn't give much away, just hints like he's going to love this or make sure to take lots of photos for us. But the further I scrolled, the worse it got. The tone of the conversation was giddy, like a group of teenagers planning a secret date, not three married women in their 30s. Then there were pictures. One showed a guy, shirtless, standing near a lake. He had this smug look on his face, the kind of guy you would expect to see on a dating app. And there was another picture, this time with him sitting at a restaurant with Rose. She was leaning into him, smiling, while his arm was casually draped over her chair. I checked the timestamp on the photo, 2 weeks ago. That same night, Rose told me she was out having dinner with coworkers. I kept scrolling, feeling like I was peeling back layers of a lie I didn't want to believe. There were more messages about their trip plans, dinners, couples massages, and even a note about booking connected rooms at a resort. Sophia had written, "You two are going to have the best time. Don't forget to send us pics." There were hearts and emojis scattered throughout, as if this was something to celebrate. It wasn't just Rose. Her friends were in on it too. These were the same women who had sat in our house, eaten at our table, and laughed at my jokes. Sophia and Elisa weren't just aware of the affair, they were actively supporting it. My chest tightened as I kept reading. The messages painted a clear picture. This wasn't a one-time mistake. It wasn't a moment of weakness. This was planned, thought out, and Rose had been lying to my face for months, pretending everything was normal. I found more clues. A quick search of his name and location led me to his social media profiles. He was a regional sales manager at some tech company, a married man with kids. His profile was full of family photos, smiling faces at baseball games and birthday parties. It was almost laughable, the double life he was leading. I put the phone back exactly where I found it, but my mind was racing. I wanted to storm into the bathroom and confront her right then, but I stopped myself. If she had lied this far, what would stop her from lying again? I needed to think. I needed a plan. That night I barely slept. Lying next to her, knowing what I now knew, felt surreal. Every touch, every smile she gave me suddenly felt like a performance. I couldn't stop replaying the messages and photos in my head, wondering how many other lies had been told over the years. By morning I had made up my mind. I wasn't going to let this slide. I needed to confront her, but not in a way she could escape or deny. If she was going to betray me, I wanted her to face it head on. That morning, as Rose went about her usual routine, chatting over breakfast like everything was normal, I was sitting across from her, planning how to end our marriage. I nodded, smiled, even laughed at a dumb joke she made about her coffee being too strong, but my mind was miles ahead, organizing every detail. If she thought I was oblivious, she had no idea what was coming. The first thing I did after she left for work was call a divorce lawyer. I didn't even know where to start, but the lawyer was sharp. She listened to everything, the texts, the photos, the trip, and told me exactly what I needed to do. Documentation, she said. Gather everything, dates, expenses, messages. The more evidence, the better. That night, I stayed up late while Rose slept, going through every piece of proof I could find. I downloaded screenshots of the texts from her chat with Sophia and Elisa, saved the pictures of her with Evan, and even looked up receipts from our shared bank account. There were Uber rides to places she had no reason to be, charges at restaurants too expensive for one person, and even a jewelry store receipt for a watch she had told me was for her dad's birthday. Now I knew better. Once I had the proof, I started thinking about how to confront her. At first, I considered doing it at home, just sitting her down and showing her everything. But that felt too easy, too private. She had planned this entire getaway with him, using our shared savings, lying to my face. She deserved to be confronted in a way she couldn't talk her way out of. Then the idea hit me. The resort. I had seen every detail of their trip in the chat, the resort name, the flight times, even the connected room numbers. I could show up and catch them together. At first it seemed extreme. Who flies to another country just to confront their cheating spouse? But the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. It wasn't just about confronting her, it was about making sure she couldn't deny it. The next day, while Rose packed for her girls' trip, I was booking my own flight. Last-minute tickets were expensive, but I didn't care. I used part of our emergency savings, thinking, this is an emergency if I've ever seen one. I also booked a room at the same resort, far enough away from hers so she wouldn't notice me right away. I spent hours with my lawyer going over every detail of the divorce papers. She made sure everything was airtight. There were documents showing how she had used joint funds for the trip, proof of the affair, and all the evidence I had gathered. My lawyer even suggested recording the confrontation for additional proof, so I bought a small recording device to slip into my shirt pocket. The hardest part was keeping up the act at home. Rose was in full vacation mode, talking about the beach, the spa, and how much fun she was going to have with her friends. She even showed me group texts about sightseeing plans, fake ones, obviously. I helped her pack her suitcase, nodding along as she tried on outfits and debated which sandals to bring. It was infuriating, but I kept calm. The morning of her flight, I drove her to the airport like the perfect husband. She kissed me goodbye, wearing the new beach hat I had bought for her birthday. As I watched her go through security, I scanned the crowd for Evan, wondering if he was on the same flight. I didn't see him, but I knew he was there somewhere. That evening, I boarded my own flight to Cape Verde. It felt surreal, like I was living in some kind of spy movie. The resort was beautiful, exactly the kind of place Rose had always dreamed about visiting. Too bad she had decided to experience it with someone else. When I checked into my room, the receptionist smiled and asked if I was here for a romantic getaway. I almost laughed at the irony. Not quite, I told her. That night I barely slept. I spent hours pacing, thinking about what I was going to say when I saw them. The divorce papers were in my bag, ready to be served. All that was left was to wait for the perfect moment. The morning I confronted Rose is seared into my memory, every detail as vivid as if it happened yesterday. I woke up early, running on almost no sleep, and got dressed in the plainest clothes I had packed. I wasn't there to stand out, I was there to catch her. The divorce papers were folded neatly in my bag, along with my phone and the small recorder my lawyer insisted I use. I sent Rose a casual text, something along the lines of, "Hope you're having a great time. What are you up to today?" It didn't take her long to reply, a selfie by the pool, the ocean glistening in the background. She wrote, "Just relaxing for now, then heading into town with the girls later. Miss you." The pool she mentioned was the one I'd scoped out the night before, the main one near the lobby with a swim-up bar. That was all I needed. I grabbed the papers, slipped the recorder into my pocket, and headed out. The moment I stepped onto the pool deck, I spotted them. Rose was lying on a sun lounger, sunglasses on, the blue bikini she'd shown me at home catching the sunlight. Evan was sitting beside her, leaning over to rub sunscreen onto her legs. They looked so at ease, so comfortable, like they had done this 100 times before. I didn't feel rage or sadness in that moment, just clarity. This was it. This was what all her lies and sneaking around had led to. I walked toward them slowly, my footsteps crunching against the stone tiles. Evan noticed me first. He gave me a quick glance and then turned back to Rose, probably assuming I was just another guest. "Excuse me," I said, loud enough to catch both their attention. Evan turned back, this time with an annoyed expression. "Can I help you?" he asked, like I was interrupting his vacation. That was when Rose sat up, pulling her sunglasses down to see me better. Her jaw dropped. She stammered, What are you doing here?" I didn't answer her right away. I pulled the manila envelope out of my bag and handed it to her. Her hands shook as she took it, her face going pale. She barely opened it before closing it quickly, as if denying what was inside would somehow make it disappear. Evan stood up then, puffing out his chest like he was ready to intimidate me. "You need to leave," he said, stepping closer, his tone all bravado. I laughed, a short, bitter laugh. "Leave?" I said. "You're on a romantic getaway with my wife, and you think I'm the one who doesn't belong here?" Rose started babbling. "This isn't what it looks like." I cut her off. "It's exactly what it looks like." I gestured toward Evan. "Is this one of your friends, Rose? Because it sure looks like he's more than that." Evan tried to push me back, his hand pressing against my chest. That was his mistake. I shoved him, harder than I intended, and he stumbled backward into a sun lounger before toppling into the pool. The splash was enormous, drawing the attention of everyone nearby. People started pulling out their phones, recording the chaos. Rose stood up, panicking, her voice rising as she tried to calm the situation. "Please, this isn't—" I pointed at her. "Save it. You lied to me, Rose, over and over again, and now everyone can see who you really are." Evan scrambled out of the pool, dripping wet and furious, but before he could say or do anything, a couple of guys from a nearby cabana stepped in. One of them muttered something about hotel security being on the way. Rose was crying now, loud, messy sobs that drew even more attention. She clutched the envelope to her chest, tears streaming down her face. Evan tried to approach me again, but one of the men from the cabana held him back. I didn't stick around to see what happened next. I turned and walked away, back toward the lobby. I could hear Rose calling after me, but I didn't look back. By the time I reached my room, I had already decided to leave the resort immediately. I packed my things, checked out, and caught the next taxi to the airport. Sitting in the terminal, watching the video I'd recorded of the confrontation, I felt a strange sense of relief. It wasn't over yet, but the hardest part was behind me. 2 days after I got back home, Rose showed up at our house. She was still in her beach clothes, as if she had come straight from the airport. Her hair was messy, her face puffy from crying, and she carried the manila envelope like it weighed 100 pounds. The second I opened the door, she burst into tears. "I can explain everything," she sobbed, stepping inside before I could say anything. I just stood there, arms crossed, waiting to hear what excuse she was about to throw at me. She went on about how Evan was just a friend from work, that things got out of hand, but nothing serious happened. The same line she had used every other time I'd asked her about staying late at the office or her overly affectionate behavior. This time, I didn't let her finish. I pointed to the envelope she was holding. "You know what's in there. There's no talking your way out of this." Her voice cracked. "We can fix this. We've been through so much together." "No, Rose," I said, cutting her off. "I have been through so much. With you lying to my face, sneaking around, planning a vacation with another man while pretending it was a girls' trip. I'm done." She stood there for a moment, completely still, as if she thought I might change my mind if she just stared at me long enough. But then I walked past her, went to the bedroom, and started packing up her things. She followed me, pleading the whole time, but I didn't say another word. I grabbed a couple of suitcases and started tossing her clothes inside. When I was done, I left them by the door. "Your sister's place or wherever you've been staying. It's your problem now. You're not staying here anymore." Her crying turned into anger. Then she accused me of overreacting, of being cold and unfeeling. She even tried to turn it around on me, saying that if I hadn't been so focused on work lately, maybe she wouldn't have felt the need to look elsewhere. That one almost made me laugh. Once she left, I sat down on the couch with Robin, our cat, curled up on my lap. The house felt quieter than it ever had, but it wasn't a bad kind of quiet. It was peaceful, something I hadn't realized I was missing until that moment. The days that followed were a blur of legal paperwork, changing locks, and dealing with texts from her family. Her parents called, devastated by the news. Her dad, who had always been so proud of our relationship, couldn't even form a full sentence when I told him what had happened. Her mom kept saying, "Are you sure? Are you absolutely sure?" Like she wanted me to give them an excuse not to believe it. I told them about Cape Verde, about Evan, and even sent them the video. That shut the conversation down. Meanwhile, the divorce process moved quickly, thanks to the mountain of evidence I had. My lawyer didn't miss a single detail. She included screenshots of Rose's chats, the expenses for the trip, and even flagged the jewelry store receipt where Rose had bought Evan a watch. When Rose's lawyer tried to push for half of everything, we laid it all out. They backed down fast. In the end, I got to keep the house and the car. Rose walked away with 30% of our savings, far less than she would have gotten if this had been a clean split. I also kept Robin, which honestly was one of the biggest reliefs of all. She barely paid attention to him anyway. A few weeks later, I heard through mutual friends that Evan's wife had also filed for divorce. I had messaged her right after the trip, sending her the video and screenshots. At first she was defensive, accusing me of trying to stir up trouble, but once she saw the evidence, everything changed. She thanked me for telling her and said she'd already started looking for a lawyer. The fallout was messy, but there was also a strange satisfaction in knowing that neither Rose nor Evan got to walk away unscathed. Their picture-perfect lives were shattered, just like mine had been. Months later, I feel free. The hurt is still there, but it doesn't define me anymore. The house feels like mine now, and I'm slowly redecorating, making it a space where I can start over. I've even started going out more, meeting new people, and rediscovering what life feels like without constant suspicion and doubt. Rose hasn't tried to contact me again. I'm not sure where she's staying now, and honestly, I don't care. She made her choices, and I made mine. As far as I'm concerned, this chapter is closed. Looking back, the pain has settled into something quieter now, like the low hum of a PC that's been running for years but no longer overheats. It's still there, but it doesn't burn anymore. For a long time, I thought losing Rose meant losing the best part of my life. She was the bright, chaotic spark that lit up every room, the person who made ordinary Saturdays feel like mini adventures. When I discovered the truth, it felt like someone had yanked the power cord out of everything I believed in. The betrayal wasn't just about Evan. It was about the thousands of tiny moments we shared that suddenly turned fake in my memory. Every inside joke, every late-night gaming session, every "I love you" whispered while she was half asleep, all of it got poisoned. I hated her for that. And then slowly, I stopped hating her and started grieving the version of us that I thought was real. The hardest nights were the ones right after she left. The house was too quiet without her laughter bouncing off the walls, without her humming while cooking, without her stealing the blanket at 3 a.m. Robin would jump on the bed looking for her, and I'd lie there staring at the ceiling wondering how I could have been so blind. I kept asking myself the same useless questions. How long had it been going on? How many times had she looked me in the eyes and lied without flinching? Did she ever love me at all, or was I just the safe, reliable option while she chased excitement elsewhere? But somewhere along the way, the questions changed. They stopped being about her and started being about me. Why had I ignored the little red flags? Why had I trained myself to accept half-truths because confrontation felt scarier than silence? Why did I think love meant never questioning, never demanding honesty, never protecting my own peace? That's when the anger turned inward, and then, mercifully, it turned into resolve. I'm not going to lie and say I'm completely healed. Some evenings I still catch myself scrolling through old photos, wondering how two people who looked so happy could end up here. Some songs still punch me in the chest. But the difference now is that the pain doesn't own me. It visits, I acknowledge it, and then I keep building the life I want. These days I game when I feel like it, not because someone expects me to be available at 10 p.m. sharp. I travel alone and realize the world doesn't stop if I don't text someone every 5 minutes. I laugh louder with friends because there's no undercurrent of worry that I'm being too much. I've learned that being wanted is nice, but being respected is non-negotiable. I don't hate Rose anymore. I actually feel sorry for her. Sorry that she needed lies and secrecy to feel alive. Sorry that she threw away something genuine for a cheap thrill. I hope one day she looks in the mirror and faces what she did, not for my sake, but for hers. As for me, I'm okay. More than okay, actually. I'm free. I kept the house, the cat, the friends who showed their true colors, and most importantly, I kept my self-respect. That's the part she can never take back. And every morning when I wake up without the weight of suspicion on my chest, I know I made the right choice. The story that started with a stranger calling me out over a monitor ended with me finally standing up for myself. Funny how life works. I wouldn't trade the pain if it meant giving up the peace I have now. I earned this peace the hard way, and nobody, not Rose, not Evan, not anyone, gets to take it from me again.